it's a big deal to be able to report on COVID on YouTube, right? Because we have to pass a special test and things like that. And so we're on a special list of news shows who are allowed to report on COVID on YouTube. That's correct, right, Steph? I'm not exaggerating this. This is true, right? Yeah. Ruby, this is true?
According to our team.
So according to my team, that we're on some kind of a list, a white list or whatever. And so we've been approved to be able to be monetized when we talk about COVID, even though that's not always the case. So anyway, and you're not allowed to say anything that doesn't go, if I link to a study or something that's not like verified or something, that's not okay as far as YouTube goes. So it's only like CDC guidance and it's got to come from the government and all that stuff. Well, what happens when the government's lying? Because as I have said here before, the government is the biggest purveyor of fake news next to the mainstream news media. Those are the two biggest purveyors of fake news. So what should I really give all this? I should uncritically take what the CDC says. I should uncritically take what Fauci says. That's what I've been told. And if you don't do that, if you don't uncritically take what they say, you're some kind of a crazy. And you're reckless, and you're a nut, and you're some kind of a, and so that's what, right? And they'll call you every bad name in the book. Like what they used to call us when we were getting Russiagate right. Those names. They'll call you, the people pushing a conspiracy called the people debunking the Russiagate conspiracy. They called them conspiracy theorists. I saw it with my own eyes, heard it with my own ears. So that's what they'll do to you. So here, and the reason why am I bringing this up? Because I went on the Rolling Stone podcast, Useful Idiots, and I was like, well, we don't know what's the real numbers? What's the real things? What's the real story about COVID? How contagious is it? How many people what are the real numbers? Because you see these reports that they're being told to over-report the deaths. Then you hear stories that they're under-reporting the deaths, that people are being buried without being tested. And of course you don't know because, so I'm like, well, where can we ever trust the information? And they're like, well, you can't. How dare you ever not believe this guy? Well, it turns out this guy was lying to us about the masks. So do you remember when it first started, they're like, yeah, masks don't really save you. Uh-huh. They're not going to help you. But, you could wear one because then you won't infect someone else. It'll keep that. But then you heard reports that, well, if you do wear that, it'll make it worse for you to wear it. It's actually, so you couldn't, and a regular person doesn't know which way to turn. So they turn to this guy, and it turns out this guy was lying. I'm going to play it for you what he said. Here's what he says. Because they were first telling people that masks don't help you. Well, now the evidence is in that the countries who wore masks, it did help them. And here's what he says.
To your first question, which was, what about a month or so or 2 or 3 ago when people were saying, you don't really need to wear a mask? Well, the reason for that is that we were concerned, the public health community, and many people were saying this, were concerned that it was at a time when personal protective equipment, including the N95 masks and the surgical masks, were in very short supply. And we wanted to make sure that the people, namely the healthcare workers, who were brave enough to put themselves in harm's way to take care of people who were infected with the coronavirus and the danger of them getting infected. We did not want them to be without the equipment that they needed. So there was not enthusiasm about going out and everybody buying a mask or getting a mask. We were afraid that would deter away from the people who really needed it.
So what he's telling you is that he's a liar and that he lied to Americans about the coronavirus on purpose so that you would be less safe from it. Because he had what he believed was a higher purpose, which was to endanger your life and give you false information so that he could save someone else's life. And lying to you was the way he could facilitate that. So now you'll never have confidence in the government. When they tell you, or him, I'll never believe another goddamn thing that guy says. Will you? And if you do, now who's a sucker? I'm going to have to double check everything that guy says and triple check. And so we're not allowed to disagree with this guy on YouTube. We're not allowed to disagree with them. That's illegal on YouTube. So do you understand why no one in the world ever should tell you what fake news is? There is no organization or board or group of journalists. No one should ever get to tell you what is real and what is not, and who should be allowed to talk and who shouldn't be allowed to talk, and what questions are out of bounds. There are people who, I questioned the science on this, and there are people who made videos about me doing that. How many times do you need to be lied to by the fucking government before you stop criticizing other journalists who are skeptical of the goddamn government? Why would you watch a news show that isn't skeptical of the government? Go watch Chris Hayes. Go watch Anderson Cooper. Those are your shows. They're never skeptical when they're supposed to be. So now this guy's a liar. And he's admitting it. And he doesn't seem upset at all. Yeah, well, we decided to lie to everybody because we didn't want people, going out and trying to protect themselves. So we lied to them. So now when people are out at Ralph's and they're not wearing a mask at the beginning of this, when they should have been, they're like, no, they said it doesn't help. And they're taking advertising away from certain news places that because they don't tell the truth about certain things. Do you understand why you can't play the game of who gets to be a news person, who gets to publish? Do you understand why you can't do that, why you shouldn't do that? Do you understand why there shouldn't be a certain class of journalists that are okayed to tell certain stories that come from okayed sources? Do you understand that's the whole point of journalism? Is to question sources? That's the whole point of it. Not to just relay confirmed bullshit by the government or anybody else. No one has a monopoly on the truth. I wouldn't have been allowed to publish during the run-up to the Iraq war telling you that was all fake, and the government's lying, and the New York Times is lying, and Washington Post is lying, and CNN is lying. I would have got deplatformed. They would have taken our Google AdSense away. This guy's lying. Do you understand why you can't have anyone decide what's the truth and what's not in a free society? That now we're living in an age where journalists are afraid to ask basic questions? Everyone should be questioning everybody. Everyone should be questioning the science on the coronavirus because we don't know what the fuck it is. And this whole idea of, oh my God, you asked a bad question. Now they should be shamed. They should be canceled. Hillary Clinton lied for an entire day about why she passed out. She lied at 10 different ways about it. But if anybody questioned why she was lying, you were the one who were told was a fucking conspiracy theorist, when it's actually them who are liars. Why would you ever fucking believe anything this guy says from now on out? I'll ask you, Steph. What are they saying in the chat?
You know what? I just was looking at another article, and, there's an article from that talks about it says Dr. Fauci, the U.S. trusted voice on the coronavirus.
Right.
You see those kind of titles, and then you see that he's always correcting Donald Trump. Okay,
Right.
you see all that, and then you see an article that says Dr. Fauci made the corona pandemic worse by lying about masks.
That's right.
And saying that since February, he consistently was going on one press
And
conference
lying.
after another saying they're not since February.
Since February, and lying.
And so now that has been in part of the dynamic in the United States. So why wouldn't you push back about why do I need a mask?
And why would any question ever of an article of science ever be shamed after this? Anything they ever say about science that comes from the CDC or this guy or the fucking government or the what? This idea that questions are bad. I hope it ends here.
4 months later.
Right?
So 4 months later.
Steph, even after Russiagate, people are still not acknowledging that what it was. There's still people who are Russiagators at the top of their lungs with zero shame, actually criticizing the journalism of people who got it right. Still to this day.
And the same
Still to this day, those people have no fucking shame. If I was a Russiagator, I would fucking climb into a hole for 5 years and meditate on it, and then before I came out to try to do journalism again. But those fucking cocksuckers have zero shame. Zero.
And you have everybody in the Democratic Party coming forward and saying that any vaccine should be affordable, and shame on Donald Trump for doing a poor job about handling this, except we have no solutions for you or your medical costs in the future.
All we have is that we can wag our finger at Donald Trump.
That's it.
We have no solutions to make your life better. Please go out and protest and riot. How is this not a front page story? How is this not on the front page? Hey, government, Fauci's a big liar. Fauci made the coronavirus epidemic worse. Number one doctor on coronavirus thinks it's okay to lie to the public about the coronavirus when he feels like it. What? I thought Trump was the big liar.
And doesn't it make you also I know it's all completely maddening. It's all just so cruel. And the whole time they continue to explode the military budget.
Yes.
There's no explosion of the budget on behalf of the people. It's on behalf of bullets and killing and displacing and just the nightmare. But when it comes to really being able to serve the public, it's one big failure after another. There's lots of money for every other industry except the people. No wonder you want to break.
It's just crazy. I mean, what this actually makes me the most angry at is journalism. And they're not even going to cover this. I saw Kyle Kalinske cover this as I was coming right before on air. I watched his coverage of this. Who else covered this? Have you seen anyone else cover this? I don't know. Let me Google. Let's see. Again, it'll be one of those things where they cover it, but in passing. It'll be a sin by the lack of emphasis. They'll say, and of course, the government was worried that people would hoard them at beginning, so they didn't emphasize that it could. But they'll say some weasel words like that. Let me look. Fauci lied. Let's see what comes up if I Google Fauci lied. The Hill. Fauci says Americans are ignoring science amid the corona. That's 1 day ago. The Hill. So 4 days ago, The Hill did it. So this is all The Hill. Why the public wasn't told to wear masks when the coronavirus pandemic began. And then 1 day later, then 3 days later, he says Fauci says Americans are ignoring science. That's what a ball. How again, and Fauci is not embarrassed. He's not, again, shunned from polite society. He doesn't have to go into a cave and meditate for 5 years about why it's not okay to lie to the public during a fucking pandemic. That's not a problem. Just like those people who push Russiagate at the top of their lungs don't have a problem. They still do the news. They still do the news, every fucking one of them. And they don't start every sentence with an apology. No one's ever apologized to fucking me. This is amazing. Business Insider, Fauci, mask advice was because of doctor shortages from the start. So I got the Business Insider and the Hill. Let's see what else. Gizmodo. Gizmodo has it. Let's see. Washington Examiner has it, but it's weird. I don't see NBC News, New York Times, Washington Post. And so here's the National Geographic. Here's a headline from the National Geographic. It says, no scientific evidence the coronavirus was made in a Chinese lab, says Fauci. Well, now how do I fucking know that's true? I bet he's lying. How do you know he's not lying about that? How do you know that Fauci doesn't know for sure the opposite is true? He might know the opposite. I can't believe him. The evidence is that Fauci's probably lying about this. The evidence is that he's been the director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases for 40 years. And after 40 years, he thinks at the beginning of a pandemic, the best thing to do is to lie to the American public about what would best keep them safe. Okay. So no major news or none. No. So, I mean, unless you consider the Hill and Business Insider to be big, they're definitely corporate news, but they're definitely not, I wouldn't consider them huge outlets. The Washington Examiner, same thing. That's actually right wing. So let's see what the YouTube show, Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan covered this. Are you shitting me?
Promoting face masks because it knew shortages were so bad that even doctors couldn't get enough.
So is he just saying that now?
That was this morning or today, since we started.
So guess what? We all got lied to.
We all got lied to.
Held off on promoting face masks because it knew shortages were so bad
But
even
then-
doctors couldn't get enough.
Recently, the CDC said the only people that should be wearing masks are people that are treating COVID patients, and that regular people shouldn't be wearing masks. And then the World Health Organization said that asymptomatic people, it's extremely rare that they transmit to other people. So we were worried about asymptomatic people, which is the reason why we kept kids
Right.
out of school.
And we were worried about overwhelming the hospitals, which is
Yeah.
why we did all this other stuff as well.
Which is
And
what
the
drove me
hospitals-
crazy about my kids' school. I was like, hey, you fucks, this doesn't even kill the kids. It's killing, the kids get killed by the flu. Meanwhile, you don't even scan the teachers or the staff or anybody. People have the flu, they don't want to miss a day of work. They just fucking show up and give it to everybody. That's normal. And kids actually die from the flu. And it's not a small number. It's not a small number of people that die from the flu. Last year was 62,000. I mean, it's not as many as COVID, but then you're hearing two camps. You're hearing one, the COVID deaths are actually underreported because a lot of people die from COVID and they don't even register it. Okay. Boy, I guess it's worse than it is. And then you're hearing, no. Actually, we're getting incentivized to report deaths as COVID. Elon Musk on the podcast.
So this is exactly, so now we don't know who to believe. I'll tell you what, I bet you America trusts Joe Rogan more than they trust this guy right now. Joe Rogan's not going to lie to you about fucking COVID on purpose. Like this guy. Can you imagine Joe Rogan lying to you about, I don't know, mixed martial arts? For whatever reason, like for a month or two, just like, you can't die from that certain hold. It's okay. It's hard to do that. I know it. And then it's like, I knew that was a lie, but I did it because we needed ratings or something. I don't, it's just a fucking nut. What the fuck?
He was being facetious.
Yeah.
But not entirely, because there's a lot of people with leukemia that also had COVID listed as a COVID death, obesity, heart attacks.
So do you see what happens when you erode the trust in our institutions? Now nobody knows what the fuck to believe at any turn, at any time. They said George Floyd didn't die from being kneeled on for 8.5 minutes. That's what the original coroner's report said. We live in a 100% criminal, corrupt government society. Being lied to by at every turn. Even this guy. That's the guy people felt sorry for because he had to work with Trump, and Trump is such a liar. The guy's the goddamn doctor, the head of it for 40 frickin' years. How about how I just said years? That was pretty wild how I said it. Years. 40 frickin' years. Hey, this is the part where I tell you where our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then I would tell you to go join our premium, but nobody has a fucking job. So why don't you just enjoy the video?